and gentlemen, here we go, yo. Here we go, yo. Once again, back is the incredible. Not me, that guy right there. So the year is 1981, and I go to the U.S. Open, and there was this guy named Ernie Reyes Jr. and Senior doing this demonstration, but they were part of the West Coast demo team. They had read Karate Illustrated, and I was, oh my God, he's like the gi uniform, shiny stuff, and they doing flips and all types of stuff. But there was this one guy that always stuck out, and I wasn't sure if he was Asian. There's a funny story about that anyway. Anyhow, so to make a long story short, I actually got a chance to meet these people. Now, in 1981, I'm in the background of the U.S. Open, and my leg comes out in Karate Illustrated because I saw that they were taking pictures over there when I jumped to the background. And that was when Ernie Jr. and Senior were doing this demonstration. And then in 1984, my friend Timer did this movie stuff called The Last Dragon, and I got a chance to meet these people. And there's one guy, again, redheaded, kind of like red hair, and was taller than most people. I mean, this guy looks like he didn't fit there, but he was a phenomenal martial artist. So of course he did fit there. Anyhow, without further ado, we have Master Scott Coke in the house, y'all.
Nice to see you, Jerry.
So to me, it's been such an incredible journey in this martial arts career, we can call it that. And 1984 went by like that. However, asking you, what was your inspiration, your desperation, and motivation to even starting the martial arts?
You know, I started martial arts living in Korea. I was born and raised in Seoul. My father was, in the military for a couple of years, but he stayed there for 16 years. Married my mother, who's Korean, and we stayed there, went to school there, and I moved to America when I was 9. But listen, everybody in Korea does Taekwondo. So I remember going to the PE class and they go, okay, do you want to play soccer? You want to play baseball, or you want to do Taekwondo? And I said, well, I want to do Taekwondo then, because I don't want to do baseball or soccer. And that's when I fell in love with martial arts. And when we moved to San Jose in the early 70s, or I'd say mid 70s, Master Reyes was here, right? So I walked into a school with my mother, and it was Dan Choi at the time. He owned the school, but Kwan Jim Ernie was actually the instructor at the school. And so we walked in there and we signed up, and that was, I want to say 1975, Jerry. It's been a long time, man. It's been a crazy run. And that's really what made me love martial arts is, it's part of my cultural background, let's say, or half of it. And then walking into the school at a young age, I just fell in love with what Kwan Jim Ernie was teaching me and what Master Che was teaching us at the time. And there was so much good philosophy, not just kicking and punching, but teaching us life skills, things that are important, things that build character and discipline and respect. And really, that's really what got me, that's really the beginning, the genesis of me falling in love with martial arts, which, as you know, for you too, it's been a lifelong journey for us. And, it hasn't always been a great, an easy ride, let's say. It's a grind a lot of times, right? But man, I would not do anything else. And I think that I'm very lucky to do what I do, just like you probably feel you're very lucky to do what you do. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
So Les Brown will be part of that one, by the way. So the truth of the matter is that most people don't get a chance to find their passion. They don't get an opportunity to live their passion against Proxy Les Brown. Maybe I'll get him on the show. That'd be nice, because he's a martial artist too. Got that, Les? Anyway, so 1975, around that time, I think, either that or 76, Kwan Jim Ernie was a top fighter. He took silver in the championship tournament. In that school, I believe when they started the Choi's West Coast demo team, there was a whole bunch of incredible martial artists, classmates. Name some of those people.
Yeah, I mean, listen, when I walked into the school, there was so much talent there. I didn't even know. We're just young kids, right? I was like 11 years old or 10 years old, and there's George Chung. He was a yellow belt, right? I'm a white belt. He's a yellow belt. Gary Nakahama. He came in maybe 6 months after me. We had Margie Betke. Ernie Jr., when I walked into the school the very first time, he was 2 years old. He was holding onto a chair, kicking, going, "Aya, aya, aya." I said, "What's your name?" He says, "My name's Ernie." I go, "What do you want to be a karate man?" He's like, "No, I'm gonna be a martial artist." He was practicing his kicks at 2, right? So, and then we had, Kwan Jim Ernie, of course, Master Kwan Jim, Tony Thompson, and there was other, Belinda Davis, Allison Baker. There's a really good martial artist named Jeff Langton, who was, really had the best jump kicks in my mind at that time. and we had Dino Rodriguez. I mean, we had just a great crew, and it wasn't like it is today, maybe, where there's so many people in the school, so many students, and so much. The association is so big now, right? This is when I had Quanjamuri to myself, and there's like 8 to 10 kids in a class. And I think that everybody just kind of excelled and grew off of that. And I think they developed some really fine martial artists, back in that generation.
What about characters in that room? Because George, as you saw his story, man, one of the greatest of all time. You guys went right next to a dance studio. Asked him about the Machine Gun Kings. You talk about you can't make this thing up, but what's interesting is that not only did you guys and guys, for those of you who don't know, and it's interesting because George and also Little Ernie for years have had to almost say, like, we can fight now. These guys can all fight, okay? Because it wasn't about demonstrations. It wasn't about forms. That was just the way they were able to so-called break through to the entertainment of martial arts. But these guys, super tough, not just Sam Montgomery.
Yeah. Sam was the enforcer when he came around. He was the guy that beat everybody up and put everybody in check. But listen, we had a lot of people that, thumped us along the way. Let's put it that way. But you know what? Even everybody in that school fought, Jerry. Like, either whether you're in this class or you're fighting in tournaments. I think the last time I fought in a tournament actually was in the 1981 U.S. Open in Florida. Bill Clark was the center ref. And so these are magic moments. But you know what? The demonstration stuff, just growing up in the school, practicing with Quanjamuri, having such a alone time with him, one-on-one, it's really magic moments in my life that I never forget or never forgotten. And honestly was the foundation of, who I am today. Because, I think at 17 years old, I wrote a mission statement, right? And the mission statement was, I'm going to be involved in martial arts. I'm going to open a school, which I opened 2 schools. I didn't have anything about fight promotions, right? Because at that time, there was no MMA. There's no kickboxing was just not starting, but wasn't as big as, let's say, MMA was today. It was on ESPN. Joe Corley had the PKA series with Don and Judy Quine. Howard Hansen, I believe, the WKA gentleman, he had Benny Urquidez fighting. So I came in at the tail end of, let's say, the Bill Wallace fighting era, right? But
then you had a short stay with Kick organization, had a few days in there.
Definitely. So, so I'm doing martial arts, but I write this mission statement. And from the time I wrote that mission statement till today, really, I've been involved in martial arts my whole life. And so it's been something very special to me. And really, it's a driver for me emotionally and spiritually to do what I do every day, to be honest.
So the West Coast demo team took on a life of itself. All of a sudden, you guys are not just doing a demonstration out of Atlanta. You're doing demonstration on ESPN TV and traveling to the Playboy Club, baby, and doing all these things. Right?
It's true. It's true. You know what? I mean, listen, we had a group of people, and when I think about it, Jerry, this is a time where there was no music in forms, right? At that time, there wasn't, like the performance of what Quanjo Ernie brought to the table. Yeah, it was. I think John Chung did Exodus with music, right? But he was like the only one. Everything else was very, very regimented, very hardcore, very traditional. And then here we come out of left field, and most people think that it's a little bit crazy, entertaining, but crazy.
I mean, look at this photo here. Talk about this photo.
Okay.
I mean, come on now.
So everybody in the red there is part of the team, and I think George had won that tournament. That's 1979 Mid-America Diamond Nationals. So I grew up in that era with Ray McCallum and Dan Anderson and Alvin Prouder and Keith Vitale and even Nasty Anderson came later. He wasn't even around in the very beginning when I first started going to these events. He came in, I want to say, in the early '80s, at that, or maybe mid '80s. But this was like a golden era of tournament fighting and going to all those tournaments that eventually became like a circuit. We used to go to internationals and Diamond Nationals, the US. So we went to every major martial arts tournament in this country and performed and competed. Some people did forums, whatever. It's like, but it was like a community, it's like they become your friends. You started developing lifelong relationships, really, that I still carry on today, like yourself. We met on, I don't know if it was on the set, but I think it was right after we were all hanging out with Ty Mack, and then here comes a young 17, 18-year-old Jerry Fontanez, and he's crazy as ever. He's crazy just like you. And I said, who is this guy? And then you start dancing and doing martial arts. I said, oh, I like this guy. I can hang out with him. Man, we had the funnest time in New York. After we do the, working on the set, we would go out and eat and hang out, go to the movies, and you were just part of our crew, man. After, you might as well just put on that uniform and said West Coast after a while.
And that's exactly what it was. It was energy, like for what it was worth. It was revolutionary to have this. This uniform here was the gi by the Greek. Recipe to Demetrius the Greek Havanas. And now these guys over here doing freaking musical forms and ice camera action, aerials, etc., machine gun kicks, slow-mo fighting. I mean, just vaudeville of martial arts, In the meantime, wearing a shiny uniform that was completely not used. And then, yes, we fast forward to here, and that's it. That's the photo. I mean, this is insane. When I think about it, is that Julian? Is that what that is? I mean, this is crazy.
Julian, that's Julian.
I mean, come on, that really happened.
Sujin Lee over here, and myself, Ernie Jr., Barry Gordy, who really, I'll just tell you a quick story about this little demonstration. So basically, there was another martial artist and his son that was trying to do this part, right? And then in comes Ernie Jr. and his dad and all of us, and Barry Gordy, had us perform a demonstration. He wanted to see it. And he was going to decide who gets this role, right? And basically, we both performed, and he said, you know what? I'm going to go with Ernie Jr. and this team, right? And the other, I don't want to mention any names, but the other father of the son was very upset, and he was, saying some stuff to Barry, and I'm just listening, right? And Barry Gordy said, you know what? Hold on. Let me tell you something. I've made my life making decisions on things that move me and things that excite me. And this kid excites me. So he's going to get the role. And that's why they wrote Ernie into the movie almost the last, 1/3 of the movie, right? He came in very last. And that's how much they liked him and loved him and wrote him into a film that was already 2/3 done. And, unfortunately, the other gentleman and his son wasn't happy about it. But, that is what it is. I mean, it's an opportunity for Ernie and, to escalate his brand. And listen, we were there. We're not actors. We're like martial arts stunt men. They're just doing demonstrations. And Jerry, it was nothing new. I would go do a demo with him. I'd get beat up 8 to 10 times, in a fight scene or whatever, falling all over. Same thing for the movies, right? So anytime they had a movie that they were working on, we'd get the call, and we could do it in 1 take or 2 takes. And it was simple. To me, it's no different. And they're going to pay you, give me per diem. This is amazing. I had such a great time in that movie. And we filmed in New York City in '84. It was so much fun, and I'll never forget that. And that little meeting with Barry Gordy and just performing for him and listening to him was something that I've always carried with me, and actually utilize it in some of my decisions I make. And so, does this fighter move me? Does this artwork move me? Does like, how do I feel about the people around me? Are they, is it inspirational, or is it just is what it is? And that really came from those words that he said that day. And it was a very special meeting, a very special moment in my life.
It's incredible because one of the things that was, for lack of a better description, talk about a variety of different things that the team was doing. And then the West Coast Nationals also became one of the top tournaments too. Oh my God, let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, you know what? I remember, I think it started, it's so crazy because when I think about, they were promoting, Tony Quanjum, they were promoting full contact karate fights. And that's where I got the idea. Maybe I should be a promoter, right? Maybe I could do this. And then, eventually that all worked out. But then they started promoting these point karate tournaments, right? And had the West Coast Nationals as part of the circuit. And I remember looking through the brochure just the other day. And on the cover was Ben Yerkidis. And he had taught a seminar that day and in the morning. And then people competed. But Jerry, there's some great martial artists, especially at that time around here in the Bay Area. There were some great competitors. And a lot of competitors would come from LA for the tournament. People come from all over the country. But you open it up, first thing I saw was Keith Vitale, Nasty Anderson, Cynthia Rothrock, George Chung, John Chung. I mean, it's like the who's who of martial arts in that era. And they're all here competing. And I got to see all of it, performing, but also I got to see all these great martial artists growing up. And really it was just, like I said, it was a magic moment, man, in my life, that something that, it's something that, not that you'll forget, but it's something that I look back and you just cherish it, man, because it was probably one of the funnest times in my life, in my lifetime. Some of the funnest times. Hey, there's no bills to pay, right? There's no, there's no worry about this or that. You just go to karate tournaments, man, and you think this is life, right? And you're just having fun, competing, and life was simple, man. And it was just a lot of fun. It was just, magic moments.
And then you got to start earning some money. And you open up a martial arts school, and we have to learn how to do the martial arts business. And in 1988, Quadrant 30 and myself actually joined EFC. Shortly after, the whole crew started bringing. Let's talk about that when we got into a martial arts professional.
Yeah, you know what? I know you did well. I'd watch you speak at the conventions and everything, and it's an interesting story, because I had a lot of anxiety about opening a school at that time, and really I went to this Anthony Robbins seminar, right? And there's nobody there. Jerry, there's like 300 people there at the seminar, because he had just started.
During where he's doing mastery. This is before he's doing. Excuse me. This is when he's doing a mind revolution, or he's doing what's considered certification. Certification.
It was certification. It was called Unleash the Power Within, or I can't remember. But
the first time when nobody's there.
This is 1988. No, 89. So I went to and how I got there. Tom Callis goes, "I'm going to the seminar." I go, "What is it?" Yeah, it's he's trying to explain it to me, and I didn't really quite get it. And he says,
"I gotta pay them.
Everybody gets to break a board. I do that all the time. Don't worry about that." He goes, "But we're gonna walk on fire, right?" I said, "Oh, that sounds interesting." And that's really what got me to go, was Tom Callis saying, "Hey, you got to go." And we went, probably a group of 10 of us. Master Reyes went, I think, and Tom and his wife at the time. But anyway, it was life changing, because the one thing he taught me was, if you have anxiety or fear about something, he had the saying, if you can't, you must, and if you must, you will. I go, I have to overcome this, man. This is like anxiety for me. So after going to his seminar, within 6 months, I opened my first, official school, and painted it in the color that I wanted to do. And in that seminar, in that dream, and I really haven't told too many people the story, but he had like this little session where everybody closed their eyes. They talk about, what do you see? What's your vision?
Helicopter.
But what's your vision? What do you see? What do you see yourself doing in the future? Anyway, it's just a little exercise. And in my mind, Jerry, and Glenn already knows this because I've talked to him about many times. In my mind, I was like, I'm at the Oakland Arena, right? And there's fights going on, and it's packed. This is in 88, 89. And I go, it's packed. And I can smell the popcorn. I can smell, people are competing. And, I can hear the rumble of the crowd when the fight's happening. That was my vision in 89 in that happening. And I was already promoting PK karate at that time for what, four years? And it was small here. San Jose didn't have an arena back then, Jerry. I had to go to the Oakland Coliseum to go to a big stadium, because San Jose Sharks Arena didn't open until 94, right? So San Jose Civic Auditorium was the biggest venue we had. And so that's where I promoted all my fights, had some great fights, helped Joe Corley out. He helped us out too, but we did fights together in 85, 86, 87, 88. But in 89, after the Anthony Robbins seminar, I said, okay, this is the vision. This is what I got to go do. And that's really something that was a pivot point in my life, was don't be afraid, take action now, and don't wait. Don't be a procrastinator, because, it's something that you should not be afraid of. And so I opened the school, and then eventually moved next door and became a bigger school. First we had 300 students, and we had like 500-600 students. Very nice business, and then, that was the journey. That was the beginning of the martial arts side of the journey.
Hey, so Tony Robbins, I gotta get Tony Robbins on the damn show too, because I have a crazy story about him. I think you guys know, where Tony made a deal with us. He reneged, and I went to go punch him in the mouth. So I went to Hawaii to do that here, because that was 1992. As it turned out, I had the wrong person negotiating, and he already had the deal, and he tried to ask for a little bit too much. But that was when he did mastery. That was right after I came back and spoke to the EFC National Convention. When I came back, Kumas. Anyway, so
right, Kumas.
The thing about according to Tom Collins was that Quantum really embraced this thing. Of course, Dave Kova also went to Hawaii, and when Tony Robbins got his black belt, it was Master Drew Lee, and Dave Kova was the one holding the board as Quantum Ernie was standing there. Tony Robbins got his black belt officially on stage. Incredible, life-changing thing.
Yes, I mean, actually, Conjurani was part of the mastery thing too, and he loved Anthony Robbins, and we all loved him. And he was like, I love that and anybody that's like really into martial arts, I love it. It's like I can feel like we're on the same wavelength. If you're into martial arts, we're on the same wavelength. And so to me, I always felt that he added so much value to our inspiration and our growth and our maturity. I mean, it's EFC as well. That was the business side of it, right? It's like, look, before Commander Ned and Nick Kokinas and all that. I mean, basically, people were struggling, and he brought this formula that created a lot of value and a lot of wealth in teaching martial arts. And so, to me, that was the pivot point change. And then, now, that's probably 30 years ago, maybe 35 years ago, whatever. It's now I look at the association. It was 8 schools at that time, or maybe 6 schools. Now they have 40, 50 schools all over the world, and it's something that's a combination of the EFC education and the Anthony Robbins education and the martial arts education, and then the discipline of Ernie Sr. to keep driving because he has endless energy. This guy is his work ethic is unbelievable. People should see him early in the morning, late at night. I mean, he's got so much discipline. It's really, really amazing.
I remember going over to the Black Belt Extravaganza, and I was like, what the heck is this? Like the Academy Awards. It's like, this is freaking phenomenal. And then there's a tournament there also. I think Jim Buhisen, I think, had a tournament that same weekend, something like that. And then I go to this house, Quantum Ernie's home, and he had the big screen. Like, I was wondering what, you pull it down, and he had this girl singing. I had never heard of her, Mariah Carey. So he had the first Mariah Carey album going on, and I was like, wow, I got the album there. So it wasn't like he was just a traditionalist. This guy is every freaking thing. It was phenomenal. And of course, to see him years after, to see the entire crew, guys, I'm back. So what I did was I told them, guys, we're going to take the train. Just open up that door and go right through there. So they stuck on the train and got the house over there. Like we went to Chinatown. And then me and my old dad were little early. We were up in Times Square.
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, we had so much fun because when we used to hang out, Jerry, I mean, I think the New York City Breakers were part of that team, or the Rock City crew. There's some dance crew, right? Who was that?
Okay, so this is a question, guys. Listen, breaking has officially become an Olympic sport. 2024 has been announced for Paris, and everyone's contacting me because, of course, I'm part of that generation too. So we had guys. Tiny was down with the Dynamic Breakers, and he had London from the New York City Breakers, and a whole bunch of other contemporary teams. So what I did was I instigated a battle during lunchtime. Remember we all started dancing?
Yeah.
I wish we had a film on that because
I wish we would have filmed all that.
Woo! It was so much fun.
That's why we had so much fun. We were just hanging out, young kids, not a worry in the world, man, watching all these kids break dance and hanging out. And Ernie, Ernie was so young then. It's like, it's just, I have that picture in my mind. And even all these years later, Jerry, that's one of the grounded moments in my life that's so anchored that I'll never forget it. And it was just like, to me, it was like 2-3 years ago, it wasn't, it wasn't some memory that's faint. It was, this is such an anchored moment that, it's ingrained.
Moments in life, right? Moments in life. Like this.
That's right. It's anchored.
So this is interesting because around that time, shortly after that, you not only promoting, but K1 USA. I mean, this guy starts to go into promotions and doing some additional stuff. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, that was such a privilege to go to Japan to meet Mr. Ishii, who was a Kyokushin master from has his own brand, his own style called Seiro Kaikan. But a lot of people don't know this about Mr. Ishii, and this is why I really loved him and loved working for him, because he was one of the last students of Masuyama, right? A lot of people don't know this. He was the one.
Korean, guys. Masuyama's Korean.
Yeah, he's a Korean, but very, I mean, his style was, like they had thousands of students in Japan. Right?
Ichiban.
Yeah, thousands of students. And I saw the pictures in the book where he's breaking river rock, carrying the baby elephant, fought the bull. I heard all the stories, read all the books, and I didn't know. But so, as I was growing up, I'm doing research on this guy and became he's became like a legend. I'm talking about Masayama. Then I go to Japan to meet Mr. Ishii, and we're talking, and he's like, yeah, I was Masayama's last student. As he was passing away, I was the one who helped take care of him and being like making sure he's comfortable as he was getting older and passing away. So I said, oh my God, this is I couldn't believe it. And I'll tell you, if I wasn't in the martial arts industry and let's say understood the Asian culture, Jerry, K1 and myself would have never worked. But I know how they're thinking because K1 was really a martial arts hierarchy business, right? So, and it's an Asian culture business. So I fit right in, but let's just rewind me going over there. So I'm doing these fights in San Jose Civic. And then in 1998, I get a call from K1, please come to Japan. We would like to meet with you, right? Okay. So I go there and I walk into the Osaka Dome, which holds 70,000 people, right? Sure, I walked through the tunnel and it was packed to the rafters. I mean, 70,000 people, right? Maybe 60,000 because they have production, all these great screens. And I'm like, oh my, I'll never forget it. I said, oh my God, how am I ever going to do this in America? So I said, okay, let's, they wanted a US promoter. So I said, okay, let's do it. And so I signed up to become their US operations, like VP of operations here and promote the fights. And we did all those great fights at the Bellagio and the Mirage Hotel for K1, trying to find a US winner to take him to Japan to fight in the finals. But man, I'm telling you, it was another great time in my life that I just loved. And one of the moments that I loved about it was he was just a great teacher. Master Ishii was a great teacher. He didn't have to show me show me the book of, let's say, his knowledge, right? He was saying, I basically got my PhD degree from Master Ishii and K1, working there for 8 years, And we did so many great fights at the Bellagio Hotel, and I learned so much, and it was such an education. But there was one night that was very special, and it was the night that Muhammad Ali came to the fights, right? And the guy that arranged Ali to come, his name's Bob Haller. He was director of sports at the Mirage and Bellagio at the time. And he's like, hey, Muhammad wants to come to the fight with his wife. I was like, of course. Yeah, I would love that. That's like, that's like the ultimate, right, for me. And so he calls me about an hour and a half before the doors open and say, hey, Ali's in his suite. You want to go meet him? Because he knew him, right? I said, of course I want to meet him. So we went to his suite, Bob, myself, Mr. Ishii, and it was Muhammad and his wife, Lonnie, and then I think one of their daughters, not Layla. But so we're just sitting there for an hour and a half, Jerry, just hanging out, talking. And Ali was doing all these magic tricks for us. He was levitating, the magic tricks. He was doing all these magic tricks in the books. He was entertaining us, and he drew a picture for Mr. Ishii. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm like, I'm here. And so we come downstairs to the elevator, and we're walking through the hall, and we go into the stadium. Jerry, I could kid you not, the whole place might have just stopped, because the minute he walked in and they saw him, Ali. I felt bad for the two people fighting in the ring because no one cared, right? They were all Ali. And so anyway, he goes and sits down, and next to him is, so that night we had Ali, his wife, Mike Tyson, and Mike had a guest. Leonardo DiCaprio was behind him. I think Michael Jordan was there. It was like the who's who at that era, And Ali said, his wife said, I'm not sure if he can get in the ring. But at the end of the day, he came into the ring and he presented Michael McDonald from Canada, great kickboxer, who presented him with a
sniper.
That's right. He presented him with a winning trophy. And, I was in awe that whole night. Like I couldn't even sleep that night. But looking back at it now, that was in 2002 or 3. We're talking about 20 years ago, right? And it's still like it was yesterday, man, And I felt so fortunate. I got so many great pictures with Ali coming to the fight and this. I wish I had a video though, because, we didn't have like a digital media, like how do you explain it? Like our company didn't have a digital media department at the time, right? And everybody's working doing their fights. A lot of people didn't know Ali was coming, but I was just like, this is unbelievable, man, and something that is just special to me, and something I'll never forget.
Remarkable moments in time that are just suspended in your mind, right? Those are those photos that are just engraved in there. But listen, I want to backtrack a little bit because I have some questions, and they pertain to you did PKA, but then ISK came about, and I know your involvement in ISK was a little more than what people think, and I think okay, let's talk about that.
I'll tell you. So basically, we're doing these fights, and this is how the deal worked. Joe Corley, sorry, I'm telling you the truth now. I got to lay it all out. So Joe would come in, and we would do a deal where I don't think we got any money, right? But they would film it and they would put it on ESPN, right? So we had hustle sponsors and that, and basically he had a deal where he would go to every city. He would work with Karen Turner in, let's say, Denver, the Warleys in Minneapolis, and then Mike Sawyer, and then he had his own event at the Battle of Atlanta, and we had our event in the Bay Area in San Jose. So he would go around and film all these fights, but no, I don't think anybody got paid, right? And so we said, hey, you know what? We should just do our own thing, right? We should do our own, and we should look for another network to come film all this stuff. So that was really one of the the reasons why ISK was created, because all these promoters were like, hey, we should participate in when you're promoting the fights.
Who was ISK? So it was you. You actually made it to a corporation. I mean, what was the deal?
Yes, it was Mike Sawyer. So the founders of ISK were myself, Mike Sawyer, Karen Turner, the Warleys. I think even Hillary Sandoval from El Paso was one of the original founders, and I think that might like 5 or 6 people. That's what I can remember was the core of the original, let's say late 80s or early 90s, and eventually what happened was Joe and ESPN ran out of the deal, and then ESPN came to ISK in the early 90s when they're starting ESPN2, and that's when Strikeforce name was created. So
Strikeforce Production, that's the production company, right?
No, that was the name of the show.
Okay.
Yeah. It was Strikeforce, and it was ISK Kickboxing, but the name of the show was Strikeforce. And so that was in 1993, 94 when ESPN2 just started. And during that block of time, they had boxing, they had even pro wrestling at the time, they had kickboxing. So we just kind of did our own thing, and took it from there. And ISK, I'm not a shareholder anymore, but it's still very good friends of mine with Mike Sawyer and Corey Schaefer and all the guys. And, they're doing a great job running it, and they have a huge presence in Europe and around the world, including the United States.
It's interesting. I used to see you at the only events I used to go to that was karate was the US Open. I'm saying, why is he here? And of course you mentioned about, I know that was the involvement with the ISK, but I didn't know to what capacity. So when did you not be an official with ISK? When did that change?
Yeah, you know what? When it started, like my role became much bigger in the fight promotion business. I said, you know what? I don't think it's right that I'm involved as a promoter and then as a sanctioning body, right? It should be separated, right? And so
values and integrity. That's quadrant emergency there. And
so really,
too.
Yeah, exactly. And so to me, it would be a conflict at some point. And so I told Mike Sawyer, I said, Mike, you know what? I'm going to give my shares back, and I'm here if you need anything. But as far as an official member, I really feel like I shouldn't do it anymore. And so that was years ago, and he and I have stayed good friends, and he's like a brother. Honestly, Mike Sawyer is like a brother, and we had so many great times working on all those great fights that we did in kickboxing. I mean, let me tell you, the first fight that I remember I promoted on ESPN with Joe Corley was Bad Brad Hefton fighting Don Nielsen, not Wilson, Don Nielsen. But Troy Dorsey fought for me under ISK. I think once or twice, maybe twice. Don Wilson fought for me a couple times. And we had Peter Cunningham fought for me a couple times. We had John Longstreet fought for us a couple times. I mean, we had probably the best, fighters in that era.
You talking about Sugarfoot, right?
Sugarfoot.
All right, so
the
during that
prettiest
time, this guy
kickboxer.
was huge. That was Benny Akita's apprentice, and he was doing some incredible highlights.
Let me tell you, we were the first ones, I think, to put on Muay Thai fights, as part of the ISK series on ESPN. And the Fairtex group came in originally with Alice Gong and Jung Sun, that whole era, and Jean-Claude Boyer. We just had some great fights. And let me tell you, women's fights back then were as popular as the men's fights. And I promoted one of the best fights I've ever seen in my life. Kim Messer versus a girl named Lisa Smith in Santa Cruz, California, standing ovation for like 10, 15 minutes. It was great. And so to me, it's like, and I bring that up because later, MMA, when we first started MMA, female fighting was illegal. You couldn't do it, right? So we were the ones that fought for it and got it done. And the first fight in California sanctioned by the government was Gina Carano fighting Elena Maxwell, right? So, I think we've done a good body of work and done our part in contributing to the growth of kickboxing and now MMA, and before that, martial arts, so that's
so chronologically, we went from what was PK to ISK to Strike Force to what becomes not just kickboxing, but then your focus became MMA. And that area, the Bay Area, just was filled with not just rivalries that was happening. You were smack in the middle of all that freaking madness that's happening, and you organize it. Let's talk about that, because they got some classic stuff.
Yeah, you know what? PK, ISKA, and then the ESPN contract, and then there's K1, which was really
K1, right? USA,
yeah. and that was like the master's degree, and then or the PhD degree, and then that made me really feel like, okay, I'm ready for the next step. And then there was all these rumors flying around about MMA becoming legal in California and Nevada. So Nevada becomes legal. California, no, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. Then they approve it. Then they just said no. Then they approved. They said no. And so finally they said, okay, we're going to do it. And I said, well, hold on. Time out, boys. If you're going to do it, you have to do it with me. You can't do it with the UFC, because I've had a promoter's license here in California for 22 years. You can't just give it to somebody just because, they have a big organization, and, it's, you have to do it with us because we've been here paying the dues and contributing to the state. And so they said, okay, we'll give you the very first go.
Stop 1 second, guys. Just so you know, because this is just the truth. Scott Coker that I met during this time here was completely confident. The women loved him. He didn't mind speaking. He was part of representing a whole bunch of people, and that makes a world of a difference, because most people would have just be subservient and get the crumbs. Not you. That's part of the student degree too.
You know what it is, Jerry? I tell you, martial arts teaches you. Like my instructor always said, don't be afraid of anything. Anthony Robbins said, don't be afraid of anything, right? So my life, I grew up saying, hey, I'm not going to be afraid of anything.
Be into power.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's like, and we live in America, the greatest country in the world, right? This is, it's, you have opportunities here that maybe in some countries you don't. And so to me, it's like, look, if I wanted to do it, I'm going to go do it. And that's how I felt. So I told the commission, you got to let us do it, because we've had the license here for all this time. So they said, okay. And I reached out to Frank Shamrock, who was living, like right down the street, basically. I said, Frank, we got awarded the first show for the state, and I want you to be the guy to do it. And he said, all right. He was retired pretty much, right? He said, all right, I'll make my comeback. But, who are we going to fight? Who's on the undercard? All this. And we pulled in Josh Thompson. We pulled in Kung Lee. And then, Shamrock versus Gracie happened against Cesar Gracie, And I was like, what better marquee names can you have fight Shamrock versus Gracie, And so, listen, was it a great fight? No, I'll be honest, it wasn't a great fight. And I've learned a lot, about how, mixed martial arts, like basically, I didn't know a lot about mixed martial arts at that time because I was in the kickboxing business, right? But, and I don't think the state knew. And I look at the cage, our very first cage, Jerry, would not pass the athletic
regulation
today, for sure. Because it had a gap about this big from the ground to the top of from the first part of the cage, had a big gap. And I was like, we're going to get shut down. We're going to get shut down. We're going to get shut down. And then we had the very first show, Frank Shamrock fights Cesar Gracie, and the cage arrives the night before, And I'm not kidding. We were putting that cage together all night, right? And Jerry, the cage was shaking like this, shaking. Can you imagine a boxing ring just shaking like this? Shaking. And so I was like, we're going to get shut down. And you know what? I told Bob Cook, Dwayne Ludwig, friends, like all my friends, go to the store. And we basically zip tied that cage together. If you look at pictures of the very first show, Jerry, it was zip tied together. It was so bad.
Lego blocks.
Yeah, and I said, okay, the minute Frank hits this wall, it's gonna break. Both of them hit that wall cage, it's gonna break. And so anyway, we made it through the fight. Listen, I had no TV, I had no sponsorships, right? But we had 18,250 people in the building, right? And I think we did $1 million gauge.
For local grudge match, basically.
Yeah, local grudge
guys. These guys were like, we're the best. No, we're the best. We're Gracie's. We're part of and whatever.
Yeah, and so we did this great fight, and it was, I want to say it was the largest attendance at the Sharks venue. I want to say even to this day, because when you play hockey, you can't sell tickets on the ground, on the floor, right? And I remember as we had this big, like K1, we're gonna do this big screen, big production, Jerry, and we kept selling tickets, right? And so the stage got smaller and smaller and smaller, and by the time we sold out, there was very little production. We might have spent like, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 grand when we had a much bigger budget, because we're going to sell these seats, right? We don't want to, we want to let people come in and experience this. And so that was March of 2006. And, from there, I got a TV deal. Then I got the Showtime deal.
Wait. Don't just rush through that, because, come on, you got some revolutionary stuff, man. Come on now. So this thing, I know if this freaking guy starts doing joint ventures, nobody was doing joint ventures. Everyone, me, us. That was phenomenal, man. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, you know what? So we're doing these fights, Strikeforce MMA, and I had relationships in Japan with Pride and K1. So I talked to Saki Ibara, who was on Pride at the time. I said, why don't we do some fighter exchanges? We'll have Aoki fight here, Kawajiri fight here. We'll send Gilbert Melendez there. We'll send Josh Thompson, and let's check it out. See how good your guys are. See how good my guys are, and let's get it on, man. I mean, it's like the Marshall Way. Like these events that happen there, only one league has their champions, right? If you're not fighting all the other champions, then it's like fighting at the U.S. Open once a year, and you're just fighting the U.S. Open competitors. I mean, go, let it all happen, man. And so I did not have any hesitation about
because you're a martial arts fan. You was talking from a fan standpoint. I want to see who's the best. I happen to be a promoter also, but I just want to see who's the best, right?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's like, and it'll be fun because we'll get to go to Japan and experience this whole process. They fight in a ring, we fight in a cage, so it's different. They have different rules. But let's see how my guys adapt. And our guys did very well, and their guys did well over here too. So, it was a lot of fun. And so, we started doing this thing, and Strikeforce was on Access TV at the time. We had a small deal. Andrew Simon gave us a small TV deal. And then what happened was my investment group, a lot of people don't know this, but my investment group was a group that owns the San Jose Sharks, right? And it's, they're the group that owns that company. They're billionaires, right? So they were eventually my partners in Strikeforce. And I said to them, look, we have an opportunity to buy another company called Elite XC. And what we're going to get is we're going to get the Showtime and CBS contracts. We'll get all these fighters. We're going to get, a good roster.
Who owns that at the time?
It was Gary Shaw was involved. CBS owned a piece of it. I want to say the other parts of the ownership was like Doug DeLuca, and just a lot of and other business people from Los Angeles had invested into it. But to be honest, they had kind of run it into the ground, right? And so to me, we probably paid 10 cents on the dollar for it, right? Anyway, we bought Pro Elite. Now all of a sudden, Jerry, we went from being a local promoter to now being we're on Showtime and we're on CBS.
Network television, baby.
Yeah, we started.
Not really, cable. Network television too, baby. I was so, how I was feeling? I'm celebrating the whole thing. But my man's on CBS. And then the quality of the fighters that you was getting
Yeah.
was the who's who.
Yeah. I mean, it was Robbie Lawler. It was Nick Diaz.
Who's
I
that
mean, you're
guy?
talking
There is.
about,
That's the dude right there, right?
yeah, that's Nick. And we had, so we started developing all these athletes. And I always felt the philosophy of this, Jerry, like we have to build from the ground up, right? So we signed Tyron Woodley, T Wood, had no fights, bring him into Strikeforce. We signed Luke Rockhold, no fights. We signed Daniel Cormier, no fights. Develop his career. Ronda Rousey, we signed her. That happened right at the tail end of it. But we started developing, from the ground up, building, and that's what we're doing here at Bellator. We're building the next ground up of athletes, and then we buy some free agents from the top down. We brought Alistair Overeem here, we brought Fedor over here, and we started building this great roster of fighters.
Wait,
and
I think that's Fedor on the who. How about that person?
No, that is Chris Cyborg.
No, you know what? I apologize. That's the photo that didn't make it. I was in the process of doing that, guy. So there's a little empty spot here that would have been the Fedor with Chael. Oh man.
Yeah, but anyway, so we started building all these great fighters, careers, and then started buying from the top down. We had a roster that could compete against anybody. When we did our Strikeforce World Grand Prix Heavyweight Tournament, Jerry, we had more top 10 ranked fighters than the UFC. And here's Strikeforce. We have like 6 people in the office. This is a tiny little company at that time. It was like, it was me, Kerry, and maybe like 4 other people. And but we had the backbone of the San Jose Sharks group. And so we bought Pro Elite. We get on TV. The very first fight on CBS was Brent Rogers versus Fedor Emelianenko. There's 6 million people watching that fight, right? It was a hit. And so we kind of go through this cycle with them, and we announced the World Grand Prix Heavyweight Tournament. Alistair Overeem, Fedor Emelianenko. I think we had Karatanov in there. Josh Barnett was in there. It was a killer tournament. And about a month later, I get a call from Dana White saying, "Hey, we want to buy Strikeforce." And I was like, "Well, why?" He goes, "Well, Lorenzo wants to buy it." And I said, "Let me think about that." Let me call my partners, right? So anyway, I talked to my partners. We set up a meeting, and eventually they made a decision. And we owned 50-50 at that time, so we both had to agree. But it was something that was very hard for me to do. But I felt like if I didn't do it, then my partners are going to be upset because they saw the return. They got a great return from it. Within 18 months, Jerry, they invested their money. 18 months later, they're cashing out. Right?
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
But then you have a non-compete clause for 2 years. In the meantime, from what I remember, you also got about 60% of their stars came from Strikeforce, including the women.
Yeah, think about this. They had no women's division in the UFC at the time, right? So really it was, I think Ronda was a catalyst to really make that jump over. But, we've been doing women's fights since kickboxing since the 80s, So to me, it was no big deal. Like, why are these women not fighting? The California State Athletic Commission didn't want them to fight. That's how I feel at that time. They just didn't understand it. When we did Shamrock versus Gracie, Gina Carano was supposed to fight on that card. And the commission said no. They said no to me. I said, why? Because women's MMA is not approved yet. I said, oh my God, I'm just unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. And then in December, when it was first approved, Jerry, they made them fight 1.5 minute rounds, not 5-minute rounds or 3-minute rounds. 3-minute rounds. Sorry. It was 3-minute rounds, not 5-minute rounds. And they could only go 3 rounds. They couldn't do 5 rounds like the men, And I said, wow. That's what I said. Wow, you guys have no idea what you were doing. And in that time, it was another gentleman, not the current, commission here now, but really they just weren't educated. I grew up around female martial artists. I watched
Linda Denley compete anybody.
Like Arlene Lemus. I watched those fights. It's like they're badass, right? Why can't they fight? You're sparring you in the school. Yeah, it's like, I don't get it. Anyway, they just didn't understand it, And but moving forward, then we sold it to Strikeforce. I was basically on a 3-year non-compete.
3 years.
Hiatus. Yeah, 3 years. And then
3 years, because I believe during this time you don't have the schools anymore, but you're all father. Maybe you got, I don't know, what were you doing?
Let me tell you. Here's what happened. So I sold the schools, and I sold the company with Silicon Valley. We sell to the UFC, right? A week goes by, and I was still like in a little bit of shock, because it happened so fast. Within 3 months, it was done. 3 months, it was done, right? Now, listen, it was a business deal, but I was emotionally attached to the company, right? So on a business level, it made a lot of sense, right? On an emotional level, it didn't make a lot of sense to me, right? So I called up Kwanzaa Murni and I said, okay, I'm coming back. When's the next test? So I just started training in martial arts, like getting back into it, and getting back into it and said, so I think I trained for, like 2.5 years and then took my next level test. So his not the last mastery test that he did, but the one before, this is back in 2002, probably 14. So 2014. So he's probably had a couple since, but that's the last one that I took with him. And basically it was like, go back to my roots, and I'll tell you, honestly, Jerry, it's like, when you see a vision of what this could be and you're so close to getting there and maybe, making a dent in this, big giant industry, right? It's like, it's not a good feeling. And I'll tell you, selling the company was one of the worst days of my life. It should be the happiest moment of your life.
Yeah, I was going to say, because in order for the sold, I would assume that it was a little bit more than 2 nickels,
No, listen, it was like I said, it made a lot of business sense, right? But to me,
you're an artist. You're an artist,
yeah.
And you didn't get a chance to finish.
Well, it's not even just a painting, because to me, it's like, it was more of, you wake up and you go, what am I going to do today? Right? The purpose of, what are you going to do today? And so, am I just going to retire now? Like, retirement is overrated because there's no purpose in retirement, right? I probably golf 3 days a week. Jerry, I went to every city in the planet probably twice that I wanted to go to. We would vacation here, do this, travel to this, Asia, Italy, Czechoslovakia, here. But you know what? It's like there was a certain emptiness, and so I go, I got to get back and start training. And that's really what got me through all this, because my connection with the Kwanzaa Murni was reattached, like as far as student instructor relationship.
Right.
And I did everything that I was supposed to do. And it was fun to be back with the gang and doing my thing. And I even talked to George Sun. I said, George, why don't you come take the test with me? Oh no, man, I'm not doing that. He didn't want to do it because it's such a commitment of time.
No, he don't pick, guys. This test goes on forever. I understand, and they running and no.
No, it's really a test of character. It's at one point, But Jerry, the test really got me through the next couple of years, and as I was coming out of this, void of let's say the non-compete, right? I started getting contacted by all these companies saying, "Hey, we'd like to have a conversation."
So they were watching the clock also, because they say this guy here has a resume that none of us have, and that anybody who could, he can, because Bellator has other people.
Yeah, so a gentleman by the name of Kevin K contacted me, and so, I was like, I don't know, I think I want to just do my own thing, This is a funny story. So I go, I want to do my own thing. I don't want to, go back and work for, like a company, right? I don't want to work for a company.
I might want to sell again.
Yeah, I want to work for myself, right? I want to build my own business, I want a business of building my business, just like when you own a martial arts school, this, that. Absolutely. So, but anyway, I really like Kevin K. And there's a gentleman named Mike Kogan that he's a good friend, and we've spent a lot of time together and hang out and talk stories. And he was managing Hoist Gracie, managing different fighters. He said, "You need to go see Kevin K." And I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Well, they want to talk to you about running Bellator." I swear to God, Jerry, I was like, I almost coughed up the food in my mouth, because I was like, "Mike, there's no way. We're boys, but there's no way I'm running Bellator ever. So please, I'm going to go do my own shit." And he goes, "But you just come meet with him." And so I finally met with him, and I sat down with Kevin, and he was talking about what they're doing and this and that. Make a long story short, he's like, "We'd like you to come run Bellator." I said, "Well, to be honest, it's like, I think Bellator has not just a black eye in the business. I think they have an orbital fracture, Kevin, to be honest. And I don't know if I can fix you guys, because you make so many mistakes along the way. I'm having to go repair this. And if you guys, start sinking, am I jumping on the Titanic as they're sinking?" I go, "I got to think about my next run, because now that I've decided I'm going to come back, And I had the knowledge to do it, right? And so I could just restart, and I'd start small and then build it up, and just like I did the last company. And then, when it's ready, I'll blow it up. But we kept talking, and I just really liked this dude, Kevin. He was, big time entertainment executive, and he ran Spike TV, Country Music Channel, ran 3 networks for Viacom at the time, and has been there for 18 years. And he's the one that greenlit the Ultimate Fighter, and really blew the UFC up. So if it wasn't for him, what would MMA be today? So I'm talking to this guy who loves MMA, and he's like really behind it. And I kept talking to him, and Jerry, I started digging his vibe, right? So I go, all right. I said, one day I woke up and I said, let's do it. I'm going to help you. We're going to go build this thing. We're going to go kick some ass, right? So I called him. I said, Kevin, I'm in. Sign me up, right? So we made a deal. They sent me a contract that's probably, 4 inches thick from Viacom. I signed it, sent it back. And so we're starting to make plans of how we're going to do this. Then I get a call from somebody in the HR department, right? Hi, is this Scott Coker? I said, yeah. We need to send you a job application, right? I said, oh, really? Why? Well, you never filled out your job application, when you got the job, right? I'm like, well, I don't understand. Like, I have to fill this out? They go, you have to fill it out. So they said to me, Jerry, since first time as an adult, I'm sitting there filling out a job application for a job that I already have, just so they have it on the records, right? They're just trying to tighten it up, right? And I'm thinking in my head, this is the first time as an adult. I was 40, what? At that time I was 40, I might have been 50. I might have turned 50. So at 50 years old, first time I ever filled out a job application as an adult to work for somebody else, right? Always done my own thing. Always been an entrepreneur. Always just like you, right? Just like Master Ray. It's just like, people that, we're around. Everybody's an entrepreneur. But it's been a great experience. We've grown this company so much, and really it's something I'm glad that I did. And when I think about the fighters we're developing now, the fighters that we're signing now, we just signed Rumble Johnson. We just signed Yoel Romero. And
I love you. I love you.
But think about the fighters that we have under this roster, and we built the next crew. We have the AJ McKees of the world. I'm really excited about the future. Aaron Pico is a kid that we still have a lot of great hope for him, and we're buying the free agents. So to me, this is like Strikeforce 5.0.
Now I'm a little biased too, because Strikeforce had what I think was a mistake, because he didn't train in MMA. Raymond Daniels. Now he's developed himself and having one of the greatest highlight techniques ever. And the European version of it, which of course is Michael Venom Page.
Yeah. Listen, you all know Michael Venom Page and Raymond Daniels, they come from traditional karate, and I love that, because people were like, oh, MMA, you have to be a wrestler or you have to be a jiu-jitsu guy. No, Kung Lee was knocking people out too with his kicks, and
he
his
broke
hands.
Shamrock's arm, made him tap out from kicks.
Yeah, and when I see guys today that know traditional martial arts that can hit people with side kicks and hit people with hook kicks or back kicks, or the stuff that Raymond Daniels do, it's phenomenal. The stuff that MVP does, forget about it. His style of fighting sideways, I get it, because that's how we used to do it, right? Back in the day. Even today, it's probably still the same. But a lot of people don't understand it. They don't get it. They don't. But when
it's the kryptonite. It's the kryptonite to MMA fighters who come with a shoulder like that. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Then the jump knee comes in, or the side kick comes, or the back kick comes in.
A 360 spinning punch.
How crazy was that? He wanted to hit him with he goes, Coger, I wanted to hit him with the 360 jump round kick, right?
It was too far.
So he goes, yeah. So when I landed, I just threw the right hand over. I was like, oh man, He goes, but I noticed when I was spinning in the air that I was going to be short. So that's when I decided to punch when I landed. I said, you got to be kidding me. All that process in your mind as you were spinning in the air? He says, yeah. I said, wow. I mean, come on. The stuff that we've seen, there's unbelievable
it becomes slow motion. That's what it becomes slow motion.
Yeah.
When we do that stuff. It is interesting because even the highlights when he was doing the Bellator kickboxing, which is, okay, let me just ask you that. Has Bellator kickboxing stopped, or is that on hold? What's the deal with that?
Because of COVID, right, we ramped everything down, and really our core business is going to be mixed martial arts. And, we've done kickboxing. We have the stage that comes, we have the the ring, and then the cage comes down from the top. And we had this great apparatus that we actually invented to do both. And we've done it in Europe, because in Europe, a lot of places still kickboxing is much more popular than MMA. And a lot of people, when something I take really a lot of pride in is we went to Italy, right? Kickboxing, it's all kickboxing, right? And we promoted MMA. We did the first kickboxing MMA fight, right? But people were like, they didn't really understand it, you know? And there wasn't a lot of fighters to choose from that were from that region. Right. But now, Jerry, after 6 years of doing fights in Europe, and now there's a lot of gyms. We went to Israel for the first time, the very first time, did a fight in Tel Aviv. And I went to one MMA gym with Royce Gracie there. They probably had, 10 fighters at the time. But there was probably only in the whole country, right? Maybe 10 gyms, right? And only a couple of people were actually at the quality level that you need to fight. Now, there's 25 gyms within the city of Tel Aviv alone doing MMA, because we go back there, we sign fighters from Tel Aviv, we sign fighters from Italy, we sign fighters from France, because we're going to go out there and basically we've basically implanted that we're going to be here, we're going to come back and start training in MMA. And there's an opportunity, if you can, compete at this level, you'll have a home here at Bellator. So we've made an impact. Another thing about martial arts growth, right? Tel Aviv, Budapest, Ireland, they were already doing MMA in Ireland for many years, right? But, we just signed, I want to say 20 of the top guys from Ireland, in London. We do fights in London, MVP is a big star there. But we signed 20 guys underneath them.
Hey, wait, but you also went to Hawaii, two events, one weekend, and a big star over there, and beat the UFC to Hawaii, by the way.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's like I've been going to Hawaii to watch fights, Jerry, since I want to say 94, 95, maybe even earlier. I saw Danny Steele fight Melchor Minor in Hawaii at the Blaisdell, or it might have been the Rock Arena or Blaisdell Arena. And that was probably late 80s. And then they had a fighter named Dennis Alexio, who was very popular at the time. Go watch his fights, all sanctioned by ISK. And to see the Rumble in the Rock came, at that time with BJ Penn. He used to promote his own fights. And Super Brawl.
Tom Callis used to work with him, I believe.
Yes, Tom Callis. That's when I went to his school in the Big Island of Hawaii. I think BJ Penn's father owned the business, owned the building, and BJ Penn walked in. I'm like,
his brother too, I think, was students.
Yeah, it's like he was like, hey, I want to, this is before he became like a real big competitor, But there's no shortage of great fighters out there. They just need opportunity. And so as we were traveling around the world doing these fights, we said, okay, we're going to start looking for the next talent and start building the next talent in that region. And,
but it's not just that, because what you said also, because it seems to me like from a production standpoint, you got to deal with Europe also like a separate thing, and then the United States. Like, what the heck is that about? You cutting all these different deals to their viewership, right?
Think about this. The fights that air here, Jerry, there's 3 a.m. in the UK, right? So the hardcore fan base there will watch it. But, to really build a star in the UK, you need to have a British guy or a British girl, right? You want to be ahead. You want to have a big TV presence in Russia. You better have some Russian fighters, because I'm telling you right now, it's just how it is. I mean, people are nationalistic, right? So, and we're really about growing this brand worldwide. We're in 160 countries around the world. We have so many different TV distribution deals. It's the viewership is quite amazing in the overall snapshot. Here we're on CBS Sports Network. But the merger with Viacom and CBS just happened in January of this past year, or this year.
Oh my gosh!
And that
I didn't know that. So now we're looking at going back to CBS with a joint venture. That's crazy. Full circle with what you did years ago.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that we're jumping on CBS yet, but I believe there's going to be an opportunity to look at all the different networks, because right now CBS has a streaming service called CBS All Access, right? And next year they're going to change the name to, I think it's Paramount Plus, right? So I think we'll be able to dabble in that, or the CBS Sports Network. They also own Showtime. They also own MTV, VH1, Comedy Central. I mean, this company is a mega media giant, and Bob Backus, the CEO of the company, and all the executives that I've met along the way, they love it. Bob comes to our fights, and he's a fan, and so it's been really great working with a group that really supports it and wants to push it and says, hey man, I can't wait to see. I got an email yesterday from Bob saying, hey, I can't wait to see Bellator next year live, and we'll hang out, and, whatever. So I said, I'm going to send back an email saying, hey, I can't wait to see you at the fight, because right now nobody can come. I mean, I'm sure if you wanted to come, you could come, but everybody is working from home, and everybody's supposed to not have any audiences. But there will be a day, Jared, I believe next year, 21, where things kind of get back to, I don't want to say normal, but it'll be a great adjustment in that we'll have the ability to have fans come back. And whether it's through a vaccine or whether it's through the virus kind of, running its course, like the Spanish, the Spanish flu in what was it, 1918 to 1920? It lasted for 2 years, then it just disappeared, right? So to me, something's going to happen, and I believe that towards the end of next year, we will have the ability to go back to HP Pavilion here, SAP Arena here in San Jose, go back to Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that for a second. Rest in peace to my brother who's actually there with me. So to be at the Garden, you probably remember, there was a time where you and I had a conversation around it might have been around 2000, but we were speaking to, at the time, my ex-wife and I, to Madison Square Garden, and you had the K-Word. I said, well, maybe I could talk to these people about doing something. And then years after, to be at the Garden with my brother and Fedor fighting, oh my gosh. And then there's a highlight reel when I'm dancing my little brother. That's one of the clips that comes out. Actually, Joe Corley said that to me. Corley was the one that sent me the clip of my little brother and I dancing when the TV cameras came around, which is nuts.
Wow, that's so cool. But I mean, listen, I'm from the West Coast. I had never been to the Garden to see a sporting event. So my first sporting event at the Garden, which I've always wanted to go to, was the fight that we promoted, and Fedor versus Matt Mitrione, where they both knocked each other out, and then Matt Wolf got up first and finished, took care of Fedor. But to have that whole fight there, it was just surreal to me, man. It was unbelievable. At the weigh-ins, Jerry, they brought out the same scales that Ali and Frazier jumped on to weigh each other, right? Now, it wasn't that we used those scales officially, but just to jump on it and flex a pose or whatever, or do a fighting pose. Come on, man. You can't. I go, this is unbelievable.
Another moment, right? One of those moments in time again that you can't duplicate.
That's right. That's right. Another anchored moment, right? And so Madison Square Garden was definitely on the bucket list. And so we did it in a big way and something very special.
Hey, so even during these times, I believe that everyone's learned how to not just adapt, but get creative. I'm sure some new techniques now in terms of production has came about because of it. Because when I spoke to you, that's whatever's worth. And I know this sound like to me, like this is an impossible thing. Stockholder, let's say for argument's sake, he's one of the most maybe the second, at least in the top three most powerful people in MMA. That's what I look at it. I mean, realistically. And his guy, everyone loves him. He's real deal people. But at the same time, the track record is almost, the resume is ridiculous. You cannot duplicate that from a promoter standpoint at all. It's not happening. Mm-hmm. But when I texted you and Michael Jai White. Now, when I think about it, I'm saying, damn, I know these guys. Like, these are like my friends, And you both responded within an hour or so, even though it was in the West Coast. And you was on your way over to Paris,
Okay.
And you say, yeah, when I get back, because I'm on my way to, and I'm thinking, yeah, no, he's going over to France, and they have a fight going on. But I'm like, just like you, I'm like, yo, I know Scott Coker for a long time. I know Michael Jai White since he was 13. Which is insane when you think about it. And for whatever it's worth, when I interviewed someone like Mike Stone, like people don't know I had a relationship with him, and then George Jung, of course, and all the incredible stuff that he's been doing, San Francisco 49ers, etc. So these are, to me, those same moments. Like the first time I had Scott on my show. When you understand, that's what I'm trying to do my part to make sure that people understand the possibilities. Dreams do come true. And during a pandemic, I was able to do something about what I can to show the passion and the love and the understanding. I mean, back there, you have a photo of Bruce Lee. I see that there. You know, I mean, come on, man. We all wanted to just be a version of Bruce Lee. And then I see that other, the little dot, I should say, the water and the progression. That's excellence. That's the excellence poster that you have back there. I had the same poster. I got it from EFC when we won some award. You know, so it's like, and then we talk about Tony Robbins. So it's like, this is an impossibility. Think about it. Who would have thought that from 1984, we would have been alive, let alone do this?
Jerry, I'll tell you, what you're doing, I love what you're doing. I watched, I don't want to say all of it, but I've watched a lot of your interviews. I love the George Chung one. I learned some things about George and where he got some of his stuff from that video. I did not know he went to the dance studio next door to go learn how to do his machine gun kicks, right? But I'll tell you, man, he is, a good friend, and it's like a brother, right? Nothing I would not do for that guy. And same thing, we have a bond with our team that's still there to this day. And the reason why what you're doing is so special, really, honestly, is the history of everything, right? You and I, we're from the same place, We grew up in a martial arts school. We love martial arts. We met on the set of The Last Dragon. Been friends ever since. I watch you at EFC. I watch you do your school thing and all the stuff that you've done. It's really the same. Really, we're all the same, right? And I think that's why we'll always be connected. That's why George and I will always be connected. Ernie Sr., Ernie Jr. It's like, this is just one big family, right? And so there's some people that have done other stuff, whatever, but hey, it's all great. Everybody, there's all love for that. But as far as the history of those interviews you're doing right now are going to be priceless one day, because you know what? Some of those people might not be around, like you said, later, right? And, I remember George's interview when he talked about the Ed Parker seminar, right? Well, I was at that seminar with George, right? And I'll never forget, we were Taekwondo guys. They were like, Kempo, this, Kempo that, Kempo this, whatever, right? And then I watched Ed Parker do Kempo, and I'll never forget it. I was like, oh my God, this guy would hurt me, man. Like, he would hurt me. And so it gave me a lot of respect. But the way he taught, Ed Parker taught, and the way that he demonstrated his martial art, it was fascinating, honestly. And George was there. I was there. I think Panjamurni was there. Because Panjamurni said, hey, let's go check that seminar out, right? Because he was about evolving and not just being a Taekwondo. If you look at the association today, there's a lot of MMA, tons of MMA grappling now that is involved in the curriculum. A lot of Muay Thai now is in the curriculum. There's a lot of, different types of self-defense. It's not just Taekwondo anymore. It hasn't been Taekwondo for probably 20 years, 30 years. He's always evolved. And, that's something I'm very thankful to him, because he was never so narrow-minded that this was just the style. When Bill Wallace came, he said, let's go, Mr. Kwanjamuri said, let's go check it out. And I'll never forget, I was a red belt. George Chung, I'll send you some pictures. It's so funny. Me and George Chung, red belts. We got our red belts on. We have like the little stripe, the little red sash, and he's teaching seminars. And then he goes, who wants to spar, right? I was like 15, 16. And I'm like, I'm not going to go spar. This dude would kill me. But Kwanjamuri said, I want to spar you. And so him and Bill Wallace had a nice little match. Tony Thompson and him had a nice little match. But, those moments, they're anchored in my mind because of, those were legends to me at the time, right? Think about it. Bill Wallace, right? Joe Louis, like these were like, your heroes, right? So Benny Urquidez, same thing. It's like a hero. These are bigger than life in our world. And so you are continuing the tradition. I will do my part too with MMA and, doing some interviews. Like one of the interviews I'm really appreciative of is I sent a film crew to Master Jun Ree's house. And we filmed, I want to say 2 days with Tom Callis asking questions, maybe a month before he passed away. Wow. About martial arts and about Bruce Lee, about training with this guy, about his students and his philosophy. And it's priceless to me. It's priceless because it's the history of Master Ree's, commitment to martial arts for how many years? 60, 70 years, right? And, but you're doing the same thing. You are capturing all this footage, all these great interviews. Mike Stone, another guy. Look, he was, back in the day, he was the man. Let's face it, right? He was the man. He was the guy that was beating everybody. And, people just remember him as being the guy that stole Elvis's wife. But really,
you heard me ask him too. That was the truth. You know me. You know me. I'm an absolute freak.
But but he was the real deal. He was a guy that was, and there was so many great martial artists that I grew up, admiring and looking up to, and now you're interviewing them and you're capturing all these interviews. And Jerry, you've been around and I've been around. We know how it all unfolded. I know the history between the point fighting to go to full contact karate, to the WKA, to the ISKA, PKA, to the ISK, to becoming eventually my MMA. Like how did all this evolve? Well, I was there. I lived. I thought I'm old enough to where I lived through it, right? And same thing with you. It's like you've seen the whole evolution, right, of this thing. And that's why what you're doing is great, because you're capturing the past, and you'll be able to put the past and the present and the future together, with all these great interviews you're doing.
One of the things that I'm just trying to leave the village a better place. But just like you, this is the big joke. I get a chance to speak to my heroes, and they thank me. You know what I mean? I get a chance to speak to my heroes, and they thank me. That Grandmaster Reed, it was interesting. I went to his memorial, and a guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, Jerry, my name is Pat Worley." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I hit him with, I'm like, what are you talking? And it's crazy because my instructor, rest in peace, Supreme Grandmaster Sang-Soo Tiger Kim, was with Master Reed when Ali went and fought Inoki and how you call it. And my instructor said again, how did he become popular? Great Grandmaster Aaron Banks, world's the best promoter to me. I'm a little biased. Yes. He had over 20,000 people, Madison Square Garden. We're talking about Wide World of Sports, almost 20,000 people there, 1960s and 70s. And this man, I learned everything with the joint venture he did with Sid Bernstein, who's the promoter who put the Beatles over to America, to of all places, Shea Stadium. I heard all those stories. He was on my payroll. Because if you're the smartest person in the room, that may not be the best room.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And, especially in today's world where there's so many different things that impact your business, right? And I'm talking about digital team. I had no idea what a digital team was, 8 years ago. Social team, what? What is this? I mean, it's you got to hire 18
and this
to 20
thing is stronger than the computer we had. The Tandy computer that I had from Radio Shack, he is more powerful than a whole bunch of them.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different things, new technologies that impact cultural society that you have to have a grasp on, And listen, I'm always learning, and I talk to my son all the time. Say, hey, what do you think about this? And he'll give me a whole explanation. But if I didn't have him as a resource, I'd have to ask somebody, right? It's like it's changing. Things have evolved. Things are changing. It's become a digital world. Think about how powerful television was. It still is today. But I can tell you this. One day when my son has kids, they're not going to watch TV, buddy. It's not going to be.
This is television.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. That's the future. Yeah. And that's why everybody is migrating over to technology, to streaming, and it's all internet based. And that's going to be the future,
And then you got, of all people, George John Smack partners with us and a whole bunch of other stuff that he's doing.
He's doing a great job. He's doing a great job. And, I think of George, he was so much fun to train with and to grow up with. And, such a loving guy, family. I mean, his mom was amazing. And he had
every freaking photo, you guys are side by side. Let me ask you a question. There's a famous photo with Quadrin early on the kid and George. Is that you next to George too? I mean, because where you doing the kid?
There's the you talking about the one that Ernie Senior's kicking?
Yeah.
So that jump side kick is Tony Thompson and Ed Fong. But here's the thing. I was a senior in high school, and that was my film photography class project. So I took that picture, and that became the association logo of the jump side kick.
Oh my God.
That became the association logo. But really, it was from, I was in high school, and I go, I gotta do a film photography project. I go, I'd like to really take some pictures of you, Quanjin. And he said, yeah, let's go do it. So we all got together, and we went to Vasona Park, and we took those pictures, and I think I got an A in my class project, which is great. But
That's a
they used it for the next
now. People
30
find
years.
now they know if it wasn't for you, it would have never happened. Thank God I asked that question.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people don't know. But you know, listen, I was you know, happy to lend him the image, and now it's one of my favorite images of all time, because you look at Kwon Murray's foot position, his his hip rotation, it's perfect. It's like a perfect jump sidekick, you know. And I just listen, when I was growing up, my first test had Master Che, Kwon Murray. I was a white belt, right? Doing my one stripe test, down block, outside of it, like just basics, right? And I think Byung Yu was there too. Byung Yu was right down the street. So all the Korean community supported each other, the schools, right? So it was Byung Yu, Master Song from Santa Cruz came, and Master Reyes, Dan Choi, and this whole martial arts community. And that's really, I used to watch those guys that Byung used to teach. They were killers, man. Seriously. Just Anthony Ricketts, Sam Montgomery, Luther Seacrest. Like, I mean, it'll mean some people, to some it'll mean something, but in the Bay Area at that time, they were killers. And so that to me, that's kind of like the era you grew up in. It was, it was a very it wasn't too nice of an era in the sense that people got hurt a lot. There was no tag karate at that time. It was, people were getting hurt,
I put the videos just because I knew better, of George fighting. And I said, guys, and I won't even say the details, but him and Chip Wright, you see, is on video somewhere, and that's in the camera.
Yeah.
People don't
that's
know.
The thing is that's the thing people don't realize. Like, Master Reyes was a fighter first, then he became a forms, competitor, right? But we used to have, when I was teaching, we had a Thursday night sparring class. I'm telling you, it's like there was better battles in that Thursday night sparring class than some of the tournaments I've seen, So, I mean,
and then years after, little Ernie Jr. had to prove and do a Muay Thai of all things. It wasn't a point karate fight.
Yeah. I mean, listen, as a martial artist today, you have to evolve, and you have to, be acceptance of different styles to complete your system, right? Because if you're just a stand-up striker and you get taken down one day, you're going to be in trouble. You better have some wrestling, some jiu-jitsu, and striking skills. And I'll tell you, when I think about, backtracking to MMA, it's like, I watched the first Gracie fight in '93, when he fought and won the tournament. So, jiu-jitsu was ahead. They were ahead of its time because no one knew how to do it, right? Very few people. So here comes Hoist, killing everybody. Then I call it the wrestling era, right? Mark Coleman, Kerr, all those just killer wrestlers, taking people down, ground and pound, right? So then came that era. That was like the competition between the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling. That was like the big rivalry at the time. Then what happened was a guy, Maury Smith, came around, right? Started fighting in the UFC. Started knocking people out with head kicks, right? Beating up Kerr because he could avoid not avoid the takedown, but he could get back up, or he could strike from the ground using his elbows, things like that. But anyway,
he also did it in alliance where he was learning from guys that were doing the ground.
Yeah, I mean, again, he was a kickboxer that learned to become an MMA fighter, right? So now you have the jiu-jitsu, the wrestling, and the striker, right? And so finally, after years of competition, these guys all said, you know what, we got to do it all. We got to do it all. And so that's what happened. It evolved into, I would say, the next generation, which was like the GSP that could do it all, that could strike, could grapple, could wrestle, the new jiu-jitsu. And I think about, like, when Daniel Cormier first came to Strikeforce, right? He was just a wrestler.
Guys, say that again.
Well, Daniel Cormier, when I first signed him to Strikeforce, he came to me. We met at a restaurant with Bob Cook, who's managing him at the time, and he said, "Look, Scott, I got this guy. He used a coach at OSU wrestling. He was a former Olympian, but he didn't compete because he couldn't make weight or something like that. But he's a coach at OSU, and I think he could be something special, right?" So we meet with Daniel, and he was just a wrestler. He had never been punched in the face one time in his whole life, probably, and didn't know any jiu-jitsu, just wrestling. And I remember saying to Bob, are you sure this guy? Because he doesn't look like a fighter. Like most fighters are jacked up, and like he was probably. Daniel knows this too. Daniel and I are still cool.
Right.
He knows this. He's probably 285 at that time, 265, trying to fight at 205. So he wasn't training. He wasn't in shape. And the only reason why I gave him a contract was because I said, Bob, I'm going to trust you on this one, because he had delivered so much great talent to us. So I said, Bob, I'm going to trust you. And we negotiated the price, whatever. And then I said, instead of fighting, this guy should go into commentary work, because he's got a really good voice, and you should think about being a commentator one day. Because I don't know if he could fight, Bob. You don't know if he could fight. Because Bob said, I don't know if he could fight, but I think he could learn, But anyway, he went from being wrestler only to, I think, a really good striker, meaning hands and feet, right? I saw him fight Jeff Munson, and he was like a kickboxer to me, blocking leg kicks, kicking people with legs, understand the hands. If you got in trouble, he could take the guy down. So basically, he evolved from a wrestler to a striker wrestler.
Hold on a second. He took Josh and freaking flipped him like WWF wrestling. I was like, holy crap, he wasn't supposed to win the freaking heavyweight. Kidding me?
But think about this, Jared. That is something where that is his bread and butter. He's a wrestler, right? So going in and doing the slam, that I would expect all day long from him. But when
now with that big guy, think about who he did that to. That guy was a former UFC heavyweight freaking champion.
Oh yeah.
Don't do
and he
that.
was 265.
Spin him around like that. He did the same thing.
Anyway. 265 pounds. 265 pounds. But my point is, if you look at Daniel Cormier's career along the way, then he becomes a complete fighter, because he's doing jiu-jitsu, he's wrestling, he's striking, and he's doing it all at a super high level.
Commentating.
Now he's color commentating. Now he's, I told him, I said, last time we had Korean barbecue, you made me pay. Now you got to pay this time. You got to pay this time, buddy. So anyway, he's doing good.
I don't want to take too much more of your time. I know you're doing this because we're real brothers, but if you don't mind, can you give us a little bit of what would be, if you can, the near future? Because you just signed up, like I said, I love you, and a whole bunch of other freaking people, man. I can't believe it. You got Rumble Johnson, which has taken the time off, and that guy is scary. That 205-pound division you have right now, holy smokes.
Come on, Jerry, that 205-pound division is the best in the world. Better than any other company. I don't want to mention any names, but it's better than any other company out there. And I don't care what people say, because some people are, loyal to the brand, which I totally get. But if you look at Corey Anderson, already beat the UFC champ. I think Rumble Johnson already beat the UFC champ. I got two guys that have already beat him. I think that's the truth. But anyway, I think if you look at our 205-pound weight class division from top to bottom, it is stacked. And we're going to put some great fights together next year for these guys. But we have a 145-pound division, Pitbull, the best 145er in the world.
Oh my God.
In my opinion. 135, we signed this kid, Magomedov, another killer, right? We signed Khabib's cousin. He calls him his brother, but I think they're cousins. But we just signed him, and we're going to start developing him. He already has 10 fights, but we're going to, start working with him. We have AJ McKee. I think is a super talent. And, when I think about next year, we're going to finish our featherweight tournament, which means Pitbull's going to fight Sanchez. It's going to be a war, man. I mean, a war. That first fight they fought in Tel Aviv, it went to a split decision. It was that close. And then the winner will fight AJ. So AJ's waiting. So we're going to finish that tournament. And then, the 125-pound female division or the 135 men, we're going to probably throw another tournament next year at some point. But we're going to have so many great super fights in Bellator. And, I think we'll have some new media partners to announce, new sponsors to announce. We have, I can't tell you right now, though, Joe. I can't tell you.
Right.
But we're going to have some, we're going to have a lot of fun. I think one of the funnest things about my job is, and this is back from when we were doing Bad Brett Hefton fighting Don Nielsen even. And it's like, I wonder what it'd be like if this guy fought this guy. Well, let's make it happen. It's like I get to sit in the chair, bring my top guys that I trust, Rich and Mike and some of the people involved in, okay, this is what I'm thinking. What do you guys think? As far as I want to see this guy fight this guy. And that's just a fun thing, man, to sit down and match all these fights. Because like you said, I look at it from a fan's viewpoint, right? As a martial arts fan. And the fights that I want to see, I think a lot of fans want to see too. And so we're going to put those fights together for the people next year.
last question I have for you. Do you actually see a day where you can and I'm not sure you've been asked this question before, but I'm not going to still ask this. My freaking show. When you have their champion versus your champion to find out who's the real champion?
Here's the thing: is that it has not been UFC's business,
right?
Style, or they don't do that, right? But if they did do it, we would do it in a second. I think I had guys in every division that could, and I think it'd be like 50-50 right now, to be honest. I mean, we got some killers in every weight class right now. So to me, that's not their, it's not in their business, plan to do that. But if it does open up one day, which it might, because you never know who's going to sell it, who's going to buy it. I mean, listen, things happen in the future. Look at the Strikeforce. It got sold. I never thought I would sell it. Look at UFC. They sold it to Silver Lake and Ari Emanuel, right? They never thought that people never thought that they would sell it. So who knows down the line how this thing can open up, right? But if it does open up, let's get it on, buddy. I'm ready. Yeah.
Man, I love that. Scott, from the bottom of my heart, man, I want to thank you, man. I really appreciate it. I know that this is, again, guys, the only reason why I get a chance to speak to my friends, because they're my family, man. I know that's right. A long freaking time. And I asked myself a question about 2 months ago. What would Banks do? What would great Grandmaster Aaron Banks do? He got a deal with Madison Square Garden as a partnership. He walked over and met with Rune Arledge and became partners with ABC. ABCs were not partners with the Garden. He was partners with both. Imagine that. And he went alone. From one to the next place.
Let me tell you, I love watching those Oriental World of Self-Defense. I don't know if you can say Oriental anymore.
No, not anymore. That was the Asian. By the way, I'm not going to say that story this time, but there was a question one time when I said, hey, Scott, I think you mixed and I messed something by the eyes. And that's what we had. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, it's all right.
It would be Asian. It's the proper terminology.
You know what? Listen, it's, it's a crazy world right now, but I don't take any offense to anything, Jerry. It's all good.
Right.
But getting back to Aaron Banks, he was a genius, and I was, just mesmerized by watching that whole thing, like in that, it's that 73, 74, I think 75, just watching that thing where the guy was catching the bullet with his teeth, right?
Oh, 74.
The groin shots, right? It's like, stuff that, just martial arts stuff that I just love. And I just, if somebody else did another show like that, I would watch it too, because I'm a fan of all this. And like you said, man, you know what? We're family because we come from the same roots, and all the people, I know them somewhere along the line too. And the connectivity points that we have is pretty amazing, through EFC, through Anthony Robbins, through, the Last Dragon, point tournaments, you hijacking the picture with Ernie Jr. Sr. It's the U.S. Open. It's we grew up in the same world, right? And so I respect everything.
Just so you know, he's the only person that actually has the revival of the Stars and Stripes jacket with the Rex logo on it, with my logo on it.
I got it. I should have worn it today.
Well, again, I did the World Combat League's uniform second season. A lot of people don't even realize that. The merchandising is possible. Why can't we have a logo? Why can't have the guy spinning on his head as part of both cultures? Guys, this is to inspire you guys. What is it that you have as an idea that you may not fathom? If you picture in your mind's eye, it has happened. It's just a matter of time, money, or effort to make it manifest on Earth plane.
Yeah. And there's that saying, you become your thoughts, Jerry. So think good thoughts, buddy.
Yeah. So any parting words? What would you like to say? Or shout out.
You know what? Like I said, I just want to thank you for continuing the capturing of all these videos, because even for myself, I love watching them because I learned some things from George that I didn't know, I thought he was going to the dance studio to hang out with some of the girls that he was trying to date at the time, but he was over there stealing those kicks, doing the little kicks. And, but it's, I've lived through that whole era with him. He was such a great teammate, and same thing with Nakahama and Chung. Those were such magic moments. And, and you're capturing all these videos. You got to do Ernie Jr. next. You got to do Ernie Sr. You got to get Anthony Rollins on here.
I have had, I got most of them already that I'm speaking to. Tom Callis is be in a few days. He's in Idaho, what places. But I'll have Tom Callis. But I did Tom Callis 5 years ago.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
10 years ago.
Mm.
I did Tom Callis. I also did his twin from another mother brother, Dave Kovar. These guys used to be like phenomenal figures.
Yeah, no, I know. Tom ran one of the most successful schools ever up in Reno. But you capturing the history of martial arts, since I mean, to me, I could speak to martial arts into, let's say, from the late '60s till today, of how it all evolved, how it all changed, the business, the fighting, the point fighting, the professional fighting, the TV capturing, the sponsorships. It's like I feel like I have a grasp on that knowledge, and so do you. So you're documented, keep doing it. You're doing a great job, man. I'm proud of you, brother.
And thank you. I got 3 people I'm gonna give you guys teachers on. Coming soon this week. Cecil People.
I love Cecil.
Coming soon. The Black Dragon himself, Ron Van Cleef.
Yes, the Last Dragon. I remember him well.
Choreographing the whole thing. And then there's a guy named Tom Callis that we just mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
Tomorrow, one of the baddest fighters ever, and he's right there. Yahoo! Ray McCallum.
Oh, I'll definitely watch that one. Let me tell you, one of the best fights I've ever seen in a point karate tournament was him and Alvin Prouder. But it wasn't on the mat. It was in the hallway, right? It was in the hallway while the guy was coming out of the dressing room or the restroom. I was there. I saw that whole thing. And, it was crazy because I'm like, these guys are fighting in the hallway, like in a phone booth, when they should have been fighting but they had some beef but that really did happen. That was a fight that turned to a street fight.
I interviewed Rudy Smelly 5 years ago, and there was a guy who wasn't there that Ray thought he was there, and his name was Dwayne Spider-Man Maggot. And I interviewed him. Dwayne Maggot's brother was a fighter named Davey Moore, who died, a boxer.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
Dwayne Maggot's from the Bronx originally, just so you know.
Wow. Good knowledge.
Another incredible martial artist that promoted, who invented the PK, top 10, Waco, etc. Mike Anderson is from New York, just so you know.
Yeah, Mike Anderson, famous. Another legend,
From Queens, New York. No one knew that.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
He told me that because I had a chance.
There you go.
So between Big Grandmaster Aaron Banks, Mike Anderson, and of course, Joe Pauly, I get a chance to drop and pick into what would be promoters, and I get a chance to speak to Scott Coco. So to get some insight, because all I want to do is my part to spread love. We're losing so many people, and they call me a health advocate. And I'm telling you right now, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to help people stay alive, including recognizing them before they pass away, because it breaks my freaking heart to think how many in recent months gone.
Yeah, no, seriously. I mean, it's a very challenging time, but these are the things that keeps everybody going, Jerry, is that they watch these videos and they get motivated. They start training. A lot of schools are closed down right now. I feel so bad for the school owners because it's hard for them to make a living, and hopefully there'll be some more stimulus package come from the government. They can help them out, but we got to get martial arts back, man. This is unheard of. We got to get, traditional martial arts back, professional martial arts back. I look at the fighters here in California, Jerry, they're training in closed doors, underground, like hiding from the police and the local, to try to train to fight for a professional fight, right? It's crazy, so we got to get through this, and we will, because there will be an end to this thing. And I can see light at the end of the tunnel here. And then we got to get back to, supporting the schools, because really the schools are it's like the place where it all starts, right? At least for me, it all started in the martial arts school and grow from there. So we got to get our schools back, and we got to go support them.
I agree 1,000%. So I appreciate it. One last thing. In the famous words of some crazy Puerto Rican from the Bronx, when I say AB, by the way, AB means Aaron Banks, just so you guys know. In case you don't know, because to me, that man did so much for my instructor in so many, not styles, any, but men, women, children, any style. And I pay homage to him every single time. I do this because he was on my case to do this back in 1994.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Appreciate it. So when I say AB, you know what to say. AB.
Aaron Banks.
No, we'll cut quiet on the set. Take two. Listen, you have to say, hey, when I say AB, you say see ya. AB, see ya. AB, see ya. And
Oh, ABC.
AB,
See?
see ya.
Oh, okay, try it again. I did a bad job. I can do much better.
Take three. Quiet on the set. And action. Rolling tape. We got speed. In the famous words of some crazy Puerto Rican from the Bronx. AB.
See ya.
We out of here. Thank you very much. That was easy for you to say. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.